The South African Constitution guarantees constitutional supremacy. With it goes the Bill of Fundamental Rights. However, the rise of political groups that want to replace constitutional supremacy with parliamentary supremacy constitutes a real risk to constitutionalism. Here's the thing. It is not only political parties such as the EFF and MK that are a threat to constitutional supremacy. I am convinced that inside the ANC, there are much more silent support for a transfer to parliamentary supremacy than may be generally acknowledged. The reality is that parliamentary supremacy opens the door for executive dominance, which lays the foundation for dictatorship. I am sure that influential and powerful figures inside and outside the ANC believes that constitutionalism is a stumbling block in the way of so-called transformation. It may be that transformation, for some members of the governing elite, simply refers to the unrestrained looting of state and white-owned assets. Regardless whether their beliefs are ideological or personal, they want to get rid of the Constitution. I am not so sure that the rule of law is really as strong in South Africa as may be believed by many. Government institutions often ignore court judgments that do not reflect their ideological orientation. The South African Constitutional Court, the country's highest court, is extremely unlikely to rule against any action that may be construed as fitting into the broad definition of needed to promote transformation. Courts are also very unlikely to rule against the dominant faction in the ruling party. Yes, the Zondo report into state capture was an act of personal bravery on the side of Judge Zondo. However, its recommendations were never implemented. Very few influential individuals that were clearly guilty of gross irregularities related to state capture were ever sanctioned, except for those that were punished because they were in the wrong faction of the governing elite and just happened to be, coincidentally, also be accused of corruption. Where, in very rare instances, it did happen, justice was administered in such a weird way that it couldn't be regarded as complying with the rule of law. Tong Yengeni served 4 months of a 4-year sentence. Andile Lungisa was paroled after serving 2 months of a 2, initially 4-year sentence for assault. Shabir Sheikh served 4 months of a 15-year sentence. On the positive side, it could be said that, if charged in South Africa, any citizen can expect a more or less legal, impartial judgment. It's not like in Russia or Venezuela, where those on the wrong side of the governing elite are always guilty and punished with long sentences, while those on the right side are set free, regardless of their crimes. However, the controls required to manage the Constitution and rule of law are bureaucratically declining, and the risk-mitigating capacity thereof are undermined. The Judicial Service Commission is packed with politicians that are not ashamed of being openly racist in their questions and remarks. Applicant judges support radical transformation, which is accepted as a positive in their favor. Courts are increasingly administratively under pressure, with longer and longer wait lists. Master's offices around the country are in a state of collapse. The Human Rights Commission is racially biased and increasingly ineffective. The public protectors appointed is, to say the least, party political affiliated and partial to different factions of the political spectrum. The office is highly politicalized. The effectiveness of the Electoral Commission has clearly deteriorated substantially. The office of the Auditor General is apparently still relatively effective. The Independent Broadcasting Authority responsibility is to regulate the telecommunications, broadcasting, and postal industries in the public interest and ensure affordable services of a high quality for all South Africans. Well, the SABC is bankrupt and in a mess, The post office has collapsed and exists in name only, and the transition from digital to analog signs is a complete and utter disaster. The Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious, and Linguistic Communities, if collectively included in the government, is promoting only one language, which is English, and determined to destroy another, which is Afrikaans.